that one and make my hot take elsewhere. We move on though to Jacksonville, and no better place to start than with your good self, Kieran. You've observed them closely over the past couple of days and put up some great content for us, and thanks again for that in the sweltering heat. What do you think things are going to? How do you think things are going to go? 2 9-8 seasons, one very different to the other. One where they make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and it's all on the up and up. One last season where it was very much a season of two halves. They're flying at 8-3, and then they absolutely collapse down the stretch and miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it's been a tale of two kind of stories with training camp so far. The offense has been sputtering and having issues, but the defense is flying. There's some question. There's already question marks with the O-line, and now they've lost. Looks like Ezra Cleveland has gone down with an injury. Running backs look great. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be battling it out with the Texans. I have 10 wins for Jacksonville. I think I'm very high on them offensively. I think they're going to get it together. Gabe Davis has been struggling with a knee injury. He hasn't done much in training camp, but the rest of the crew looks on point, and that defense is really going to step up. So give me 10 wins.
I got to say, I have them a shade below that. I just don't see them punching through the sort of self-established glass ceiling that they have. I'm never quite convinced in Trevor Lawrence. You know, he's kind of looks like a top 10 quarterback one day, looks like he's on the outside of the top 20 the next day. You know, he's got that contract, but you know that's just table stakes for anybody who's middling in the NFL these days. Yeah, I can't see past 9 wins for them. I don't see how they break that. I don't see what they've done in the offseason that gives me any confidence that they're gonna spring forward into double digits. Noel, what do you think?
I think I'm going to go with yourself there, Connor. I think 7-9. I mean, the Jags have some good players there who on their day, they can beat anybody, but it's kind of consistency. You mentioned it there with Lawrence, and I think he needs to show that little bit more consistency for the hype that was there for him. And he is still a good quarterback, but he just needs to get that a little bit more sorted. I think on defense, you know, they brought in Eric Armstead, who's a good player. Josh Allen is there. I think this is a team that can, on their day, probably beat most teams, but they won't have that day every single week. But 7-9, I think, is a kind of a fair reflection where I think they'll go.
Brian?
I think you have to move that helmet now and move it into the 7-9 category, which is, I think, I do see the upside of 9 potentially wins, but to my point earlier about this division, they can all beat up on each other, and that's where when we come down to the final stretch, it's who kind of moves into that 10 category that will ultimately be the team that wins the division. I think that's where the Jags might miss out, because I think they're 9 wins at best.
All right, Cincinnati's up next. I'll lead out here in the Bengals. I was very high on them last year. I had them winning the Super Bowl. I had Joe Burrow winning MVP. Like, what are you going to do? The guy gets injured. I still think that there's a serious upside in this team, though. I'm confident in them slotting into the 10 to 13 win category. I know it's a brutal division. I was really impressed by what they managed to do against the head last year with Browning in a quarterback. People will say they lost Callahan as their offensive coordinator. That's going to make a difference. I think that's less of an issue for them than it might be for some teams, because at the end of the day, Zach Taylor's calling the plays, and that's ultimately what makes the difference. So I don't think it's quite the jarring transition that it might have been, say, when Shane Steichen left the Philadelphia Eagles, and we all saw what that did last year. I still think there's so much talent in Cincinnati. I love the culture. I love the attitude. I love the way they play. Got full confidence in Burrow. Of course, if he goes down injured, we're looking at a very different season for Cincinnati. But I'm going to stake my claim on double-digit wins. I'm confident they'll get to 10 to 13. No.
I think I'm just a shade below. I agree with a lot of what you say there. I think if Burrow's fit and gets through the season, I think, you know, that makes a massive, massive difference for this team. Obviously, you've got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase there working with him, who are, you know, not bad options to have to throw to. I think overall, I think there is a good talent level to this team. And I think if he stays fit, then I have them between 9 and 10 wins, and I'll kind of just play it safe and go with the 7-9 range.
What do you think, Kieran?
Well, I think if you saw Burrow coming at the training camp looking like Cody Rhodes, I can see the Bengals body slamming the entire NFL this season. I'm going to have them. You can put them right in the top. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think they're going to run right through the whole league. You can put them up there, 14 wins. You got a jacked up, beefed up Joe Burrow. This is going to be the year of Burrow. He is itching to beat Mahomes. He cannot wait to get out there and show the world that he is the best quarterback in the league. And it's not Patty Mahomes, and it's not his best pal, Mr. Kelsey. Give me 14 wins for Cincinnati. They were phenomenal last year, even with, like you said, with Browning in there. They took the Jaguars down on Monday Night Football in overtime, and they almost, you know, they almost got over the line. This is the year of Burrow.
Brian, are you going to put more helium into the balloon, or are you going to take us back down to earth here?
I'm going to hit you right smack bang in the middle. Noel has gone 7-9. Kieran's at the upper echelon to the top end, and you're obviously just slightly below. I'm going to go in
the
with you.
Bengals everywhere.
Yeah, well, I do think this team has so much talent around them, and like T. Higgins obviously is going to play with a point to prove this year. You could argue if he was tradable in terms of teams coming, they'd be getting first round picks back for him. He's a fantastic talent. And you got Jamar Chase. I love the addition of the running back Zach. Is it Zach Moss that's come in from the Colts? Yeah, he had a fantastic year for the Colts, and he's come in and he's going to replace Joe Mixon. I think we'll see the upward side of that as well. I think this team are certainly well within their rights to be, have realistic expectations to be in the championship game. I'll go 10-13. I think because of the nature of that North, we've seen it so many times. Even the Steelers are having a difficult time. They find ways to navigate victories. The Browns will be the same, and of course the Ravens. So 10-13. So bearing in mind that's 2 of the 4. I think that's where we need to put them.
No, I'm going to go with Kieran here because he made such a ballsy kind of prediction. We're going to give him the 14 there.
There we go.
Nice.
We finally found someone that's at the top end of the bed.
There we go.
Here we go. Right. Rams, Kieran, I find it, again, one of these ones that's very tricky to predict. So I'm going to let you guys roll at it before I weigh in there with my own opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm high on the Rams this year. I got them. I got 10 wins for the Rams. Just how they turned around last season, and just the breakout season for some of their players, even Tutu Atwell. Stafford's gonna have a great year. They're the team in Los Angeles. I like 10 wins for the Rams.
Brian, we talked last year about how there was 2 coaches in particular. One was Sean McVay, and the other one was Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, who we were really going to see what they were made of. Both of them very much proved themselves. If I'm looking at the Rams this year, I'm thinking they find players from somewhere. They can replace guys. They get something out of people that either other teams don't, and they've managed to unearth a couple of gems out of the draft. None more so than Puka Nacua last year. Kyron Williams, another one. They add Blake Corum to the mix this year, very highly rated running back who kind of fell to them in the right spot. A lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Rams. Do you share Kieran's optimism?
It's not that I don't. It's just I think the element of surprise that was there last year, and I don't mean it like was it an element of surprise? Bearing in mind the head coach touched on there, John McVay had a point to prove last year. Everyone felt that he was looking elsewhere in terms of what his priorities were, but I still find it difficult to see him in the 10-win category. I think teams will catch up on them this year offensively in terms of what they did with Atwell and, they said the rookie in the 5th round wide receiver. 7-9, productive season. I think they'll fall short in the playoffs. But they've got such talent, in particular, I like the quarterback, Matt Stafford. I think they'll win games, but I just don't think it'll be enough this year. I think teams are going to catch up on them.
No, we have a 7-9. We have a 10-13. Where do you see the Rams fit?
I'm going 10 wins. I think they're gonna have a good season this year. I think Kieran said I think Matt Stafford's gonna have a really, really good year this year. You have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp there with him, and Sean McVay, controlling it all there. I just think they're a good team. I think they're on for a good season this year. They've got some good players there on defense, and I think 10 wins for the Rams this year is where it's going to be.
I have to say, I'm going to agree with both of you guys. I see the Rams getting to 10 wins. I think for a guy that's won a Super Bowl and been good forever, people almost sleep on Matthew Stafford. You got the coach and the quarterback combination there. You got enough weapons. They found ways to get it done on defense. I know they lose a couple of coaches this year, but that's being the victim of success there. I suppose McVay, like Shanahan, because he's seen as such a guru, they're going to see coaching attrition, but they've always managed to replace. I'd be behind the Rams too. I think 10-13 is where they sit comfortably for me. Now, a team that can get to a winning season in its sleep is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a really tough schedule this year, though. Noel, I wonder, do you think that Tomlin can keep the magic going?
Yeah, I'm going to put them in the 7-9 because it's the Steelers. I have questions over quarterback, which could have a massive knock-on effect to this team. Obviously, they have a defense that always steps up when it needs to. Pickens, if the quarterback is right, is obviously a really good player there to have as a target. Frymouth is a good option there as well. But I think the biggest move for the Steelers has been bringing Arthur Smith in over Matt Canada, who will make a big, big difference no matter who's going quarterback. But I just think they always do it. Even if they look terrible, I think I'd still be giving them a 7-9 to get into the playoffs because it's just what Mike Tomlin does. So 7-9 for me.
Yeah, strength of schedule there, Brian. Pittsburgh is rated as having the second toughest schedule in the league there. It's a divil of division, as we know. It was so tough last year. All the teams finished with winning records. Pittsburgh really pulled out some difficult wins last year without a quarterback. This year, either they've two or they've none, depending on which way you look at it.
And we also have to factor in potential trade for Brandon Ayuk, which is potentially in the offing. It seems to be, suggested all week long. It's going to be more of when rather than if. So that'll be interesting to see. It's another dynamic to a team. I mean, they had Deontay Johnson last year, who was wide receiver, and he's obviously moved off, and he was getting really disgruntled because he wasn't getting the ball. And then we had Pickens getting disgruntled. It was like a vice versa. If it wasn't him one week, it was him the other. And they're going to have that difficulty this season, I imagine, because unless we're going to see lights out Russell Wilson come back to the old form of which we saw in Seattle, I think this team's going to struggle. And then do we then find ourselves where Steelers fans are getting disgruntled and want to see Justin Fields? And do we see Justin Fields that can play really well but just can't get them over the line in certain games, similar to what we saw in Chicago? And the questions out there whether he really is a worthy of a starting role in this league. I'm going to go 4-6. I think if we're putting the Bengals at that upper echelon, so I can only imagine what's come with the Ravens, and the Browns in their own right will have a strong season. I think the Steelers are the team that are going to unfortunately struggle the most, and because of the quarterback scenario. And yeah, Mike Tomlin is fantastic head coach, but could that continue to last forever? Not for me. It's a 4-6 season for me.
I really struggle to bet against Tomlin, considering what he's managed to achieve. But like you, Brian, my big doubt is the quarterback situation. The hot take after the Wilson and Fields moves was, this is really clever work by the Steelers from a front office perspective, and I could see where that argument is built from. You're essentially taking a risk-free bet on Russell Wilson for nearly no money. You got Justin Fields for next to nothing. But there's reasons why both of those guys were available for that price, right? There's literally a team paying you to take Russell Wilson because they couldn't wait to get him out of the building. Justin Fields was a guy that no other team in the NFL other than the Bears thought was worthy of a starting berth rather. Between the two of them, do you have your starter for 2024, 2025? I'm really not sure. I strongly believe that Russell Wilson may well be washed, and this is the season where we see that definitively proven. Went back and forward, up and down, left and sideways on fields when he was in Chicago. As everyone knows, it was a roller coaster. When it was good, it was very, very good. But when it was bad, it was horrible. And it wasn't all on the organization. They didn't do Fields any favors in the early stages of his career. But at the end of the day, he holds on to the ball too long. He doesn't get it done often enough. And in the spots where he had to prove himself, he couldn't prove himself. That said, the Steelers' defense worked wonders last season. They're not completely without talent on the offensive side of the ball. Tomlin, as we know, can flat out coach. I think they'll get. I think that probably the winning season streak snaps, but I couldn't in good conscience put them 4-6. I think they get to 7 or 8 wins, but that's as much as I can see in that division. And as you say, given how high we are collectively on the Bengals, Kieran.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like Brian said, the streak has got to come to an end sometime. I'm just baffled at the move to bring in Wilson. I mean, Pittsburgh is a blue collar, hard-working city, and Russell Wilson's got that me first kind of vibe and demeanor about him. So that move kind of baffled me. I don't think he's a fit at all in Pittsburgh, and I think by midseason it's going to be Justin Fields' team. But the thing to remember is we talked about the schedule. They play after the week. I think it's the November 3rd. I think that's week 9. After the bye week, they have Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Philly, Ravens, Chiefs, and Bengals. I mean, that is brutal. That might be the worst stretch I've ever seen in a schedule. And that's really going to test, unless they pull the 9th win on the last game of the season. But I'm just excited to see what happens with the Wilson and Field stuff, because there's some fireworks coming.
Right, where does that leave Pittsburgh then, Noel? I'll leave it to your judgment as to whether we pop them in the...
Are we 2-2? Was it 4-6 and 7-9?
I'll go 7-9, I guess. Mike Tomlin's worthy of a 7-9 prediction, I guess.
He's keeping receipts on that one.
I'll go 3-0 in preseason.
Brian, the Dolphins, where do you see the Finns this year? They've flattered to deceive the last couple of seasons, I think, to put it mildly, looked absolutely sensational at stretches, and once the weather gets cold, the Dolphins suddenly don't look so exciting anymore.
Yeah, we talked about the cold weather being a factor, but they lost 2 games down the stretch at home. In fact, 3 games at home. They lost to Tennessee on a Monday night when the game was over. Essentially, they were 14 points up with 3 minutes to go. Found a way to lose that. Struggled on Christmas night and got past the Cowboys, and then looked like they had the Bills at their mercy on Sunday Night Football to win the division essentially and have a home game, and they found a way to give that up. I'm hoping that they'll come on from that in the sense of they'll acknowledge that they were wins that were there for them, and if they only got over the line, they would have been a much better position, a more powerful position going into the playoffs.
Had the Chiefs on the ropes as well as you guys saw in person.
Yeah, had the Chiefs on the ropes in Frankfurt, and they got away from a strategy on offense that was working so well for the second half and let that one slip as well. I mean, we can factor in the playoff game, but let's be fair, the weather was atrocious, and it wasn't. I wouldn't say the Chiefs were fantastic; they just were better. Better adapted to the conditions better. I'm going to go 10-13. I think they're up there. I think this is a season in that division where it's the Jets and Dolphins that are running for the title. I think the Bills have dropped off so much with players leaving, such as Diggs and Gabe Davis. For me, it's between these two. So I'm going to strike where the orange hot and putting the Dolphins up there, as hot as it is down in Kieran's house in Florida.
No.
I think I'm going to go just a smidge below that. Obviously, this Dolphins team are really, really exciting and talented, but I have questions over Tua. I don't like the offensive line. I think there's issues there, and I just wonder if Tua, he obviously fits well into the Mike McDaniel scheme, but can he carry it on his shoulder if the O-line isn't kind of working right in front of him? Then on defense, you've Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, who have injuries, who are going to carry those into the season. And then we talk about ending seasons in terms of the schedule. Well, their last 6 games are at Green Bay, home to the Jets, at Houston, home to 49ers, at Cleveland, and at the Jets again. Like that's a few cold weather games in a really, really tough run into a schedule. So I think they're good enough to get the 9 wins, but I don't think they'll get past that, because I think that run in is going to be really interesting to see how they actually do stand up to it, especially with those 2 or 3 tough cold games they're going to have to travel for.
Kieran, what say you?
Yeah, they're a little like me, great in the hot weather, and then when it gets cold, shut it down. Just can't do it. Well, I mean, the regular season, flat track bullies. They just have their way. I mean, beating up on the Broncos that game, 70-20. I mean, we don't have to go over again the offensive weapons they have, but again, I think it's 25 plus years, maybe more, when they haven't won a championship game, and kind of like the Jets, until they prove different and they can go to the cold places. Whether it's, I don't know, Cleveland or whoever or wherever they end up in a cold weather game, till they get that monkey off the back, then they're just going to be a regular season kind of champion, as it were. But 10 wins for me. I don't see much difference from last year, and I can see them getting to the playoffs and going out in a cold weather game.
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't think they even make the playoffs. I think they're a 7-9 team. I always struggle to believe in Tua. They showed us their glass jaw over and over again last season. I love what McDaniel can do, and when they're at their best, they're a joy to watch. He made his name, ironically, in the run game, and that was his responsibility under Kyle Shanahan. And some of the magic that he weaves, and with Devon Achane, who was hugely exciting. Let's hope he stays fit for the whole season. And Raheem Mostert is that tandem. They do some really interesting things. The receivers and the other weapons we've talked about. Defensively, I have questions. Like I wonder about the line, and we've all been, or most of us, sorry, Kieran, have been pretty high on the Jets. I don't think the Bills have necessarily fallen off as much as you're suggesting, Brian, and so I just can't see the Dolphins getting past that 7-9 bracket, given all the headwinds that they're going to face. That's where they fit for me.
Leave that one up to Noel. It's tough.
God, that's a tough run in. We'll go 7-9.
When in doubt, stick them in the 7-9. Right, we move on to the Eagles next, Kieran, and a team that narratively has had probably the worst off-season of all. It's all come spilling out. The rows between Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, allegedly, losing the locker room. Players, coming out and saying, I couldn't believe how everybody goes around moaning about having lost a Super Bowl, and we were supposed to run it back, and suddenly it all fell so horribly flat, having started 10-1. They completely lost their way. They looked like they quit on their coach, got absolutely handled by the Buccaneers in an embarrassing playoff defeat. And Sirianni has gone from being the near master of all he surveyed the previous 12 months to a guy who, according to some accounts, is coaching for his job this year.
Well, he better be coaching for his job because, like you said, all that Hurts stuff. Hurts is the future. Sirianni's not. And you got somebody like Kellen Moore on the sidelines who's just ready to come in if they press the eject button on Sirianni. The fact that he survived. I mean, everyone thought he was going to get tossed after the end of the season. Unfortunately, as much as I don't want to say it, I still have the Eagles with 10 wins. I think the addition of Saquon is going to be a huge issue. And I mean, they got AJ Brown and Devonta Smith there. I mean, there's no way they can't win 10 games. Similar to last year, I see them going out early in the playoffs, and that's going to be it for Sirianni. But there's just too much talent on that team not to get at least double-digit wins.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, I've already come out on strongly against the Commanders and what they're going to do. We don't necessarily, or I don't have the Giants finishing on a winning record. So where are those wins going to go? It's going to go to the Cowboys, and it's going to go to the Eagles, who, whatever you might think of them and how they finished their respective seasons last year, they're still good for double digits. They're just too damn talented not to. No.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I have them on 10 wins. I mean, I think they are such a good team. Like you mentioned there, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I mean, when you look at that O-line, it's one of the better O-lines in the league. I know they lose Kelsey. Cam Jurgens is going to go in there, but you've got, Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata on both sides there. I think Jalen Carter is going to have a step up this year. I think he could have a really good season. And I'm going to choose to forget what happened to them last year, although it was an almighty collapse. And I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt that these players, as you mentioned, Saquon comes in now to give them that extra bit of a kick in offense. So I'm going to they'll go into the 10-win category for me. I think there's some just really good players there if they can get their heads right.
Brian, are you going to burst the bubble? We're all waiting on tenterhooks.
No, I think it's one of the easier ones tonight, 10 to 13 wins. But I would say I found it very interesting this week is they're using the narrative they had a Super Bowl hangover last year. They were 10-1. As Noel's rightly called out, they collapsed down the stretch. If they have some adverse situations early on in the season, it'll be interesting to see how the head coach can hold it all together again, because he certainly didn't hold it all together at the back end of the season. And as you kind of alluded to there was a lot of conversation about potentially losing his job after the playoff game if they don't get off the best of starts. Like, for example, week 1 in Brazil, that's a toss-up kind of game. And then it only kind of trickles down from there if they don't get back on track in week 2 and stuff. I could see a scenario where things don't go right, and he's talking about Kellen Moore. Well, Vic Fangio's there as well, so there's another option to potentially drop in as a head coach. 10 to 13 wins, because I don't think it'll be that case. But
that Brazil game, I'm telling you, obviously there's a team on the other side of that as well who are very interesting in Green Bay. That has America's game written all over it. I could hear the voiceover as being that's when the whole thing changed. The big trip to Brazil, and they pull out a win, and everything comes together for either side. Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. Brian, stay on the clock, because your beloved Cleveland Browns up next, a team I know you love. Can you get them into that 14 to 17 win category? Deshaun fit for a full season?
No, I certainly can't. No, because of the manner of the division they're in. It's such a competitive division. I wouldn't say I loved them now, Conor, but I was bought into them last year, and I felt people were kind of it was an oversight in so many people. They couldn't see what was coming, which was a really strong defense with Sports there at the helm. Yeah, for me, that can only get better this year. I think Deshaun Watson, and no one's going to agree, I think he will have a better season. It's hard not to have a better season. I mean, even when he did play, he was struggling for large parts of the season, and they still found ways to win games, such as coming back in Baltimore. Let's forget they went to Baltimore, came back and won the game. And I think they're primed for another playoff run. And I'm struggling to put them in the 10 to 13. I'm putting them 7 to 9, but I think they're on the right side of the playoffs. I think certainly be in the mix come December. So 7 to 9, but more 9 leaning into 10. But I think because of the nature of that division, it's 9 wins.
Noel, as you know, there's a reason why Kevin Stefanski won Coach of the Year last year. He's only the second coach ever to have guided a team that started 5 different quarterbacks to the playoffs. The 84 Bears, of course, the only other team that ever managed that under Coach Ditka. How do you see Cleveland going?
Yeah, I think I have them winning 10 games this year. Look, they have such a good defense. Like, that defense will win games at times. And then if Deshaun Watson, if things click for him, I mean, we saw what they could do last year when he wasn't there. If it clicks for him, and that again, when it comes to the quarterback, it is a big if for him. We know he had the talent at one point, if he can dig that out. But they have so many other good players. Mari Cooper, such a good player as well, and Njoku. I just think this team will win 10 games in a tough division. I think they are certainly a team who can make waves there, and yeah, 10 wins for me. I think they'll get there.
I'm going to tell you, whatever Deshaun Watson had, I think it's long gone at this stage. I do not believe he will ever get it back. I think even the games he won last year, if you go and look at them, they were the games where that Cleveland defense was at their most dominant. Any quarterback could have won those games. He's shown me absolutely nothing. I think it's absolutely gone. I think Stefanski would nearly wish that he goes down and maybe they roll the dice with Jameis Winston. That seemed to work out pretty well last season. Jameis is a younger, even more risky version of Joe Flacco, and that could be a bit of fun. I have them in 7-9. As I said, I think the Bengals are going flying this year if Burrow stays fit. Not necessarily sure the Steelers are going to get much beyond the 7-9 category, so I'm not convinced that the Browns can go double digits. I'm going to stick them 7-9. Kieran.
Yeah, I'd be the same. My big questions are the quarterbacks. Like you said, Watson's not it. I just don't. Again, with like a lot of other quarterback contracts, I think they've got a lot of remorse over that contract they gave him. And Jameis is on the bench, and that's not exactly a great guy to be waiting in the wings. I mean, they've got a decent offense, not lights out, but it's like you said, it's the defense that won them all those games. 7-9 wins for me. They're going to be the attrition. They're going to be the ones that are going to get beat up in the North. I think a lot of wins are going to be taken away from them by the big boys in there.
All right, up next, how about them Cowboys? I'll start off here. Easy one for me. Whatever happens in the postseason will happen, but I still think Dallas is going to get to 10 to 13 wins. It's just what they do. Even though they have made some questionable decisions, not least bringing back Zeke Elliott, I still think there's enough there in that locker room to get to at least 10 wins. So I'm comfortable putting them in that category. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. No issue whatsoever. They haven't done a lot this offseason because I don't think they necessarily had to. I know Huron suggested a few weeks ago they don't have a massive run game there, and that tends to be a problem for Dak if you can't lean on an efficient run game. There's too many talented players around the team, offensively and defensively. But as you said, playoffs is playoffs, but they know how to navigate regular seasons and make the playoffs, and that's for me that's a 10 to 13 win team.
Kieran?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not going to be as easy for them this year. They lost, losing Pollard and Biadasz and Tyron Smith. Struggling to think or to reckon what Jerry's thinking. The O-line is usually his calling card, and he's lost two, big stalwarts off of that. But again, they got enough weapons. I mean, I know CeeDee Lamb's playing games right now, but he'll be back there first game of the season. And they've just got enough all around to get 10 wins.
Noel, are you going to upset the apple cart here, or are we going full house?
No, I'm gonna slightly upset, but not by much. I mean, spot on exactly what all you guys are saying in terms of the talent levels there. I just for some reason I just have 9 wins in my head for them, but it's not much different from what you are saying. I think they'll be at the top end of that 7 to 9, and yeah, that's where I see them.
We roll into our final